Hey everyone, my name is Jeff Marks. I'm part of the leadership team with the Professional Ski Instructors of Canada, and I'm joined today by another colleague of mine, Derek Foose, who leads our Big Mountain program, which is part of our certification pathway. And we've had lots of questions since the program started just last year, and so here we are. And we've got about a half an hour of information for you here to consume, and we hope you enjoy it. And I'll turn it over to Derek.
Yeah, we had a great meeting earlier in the preseason this year with some of the leaders in the ski industry. We had some snow school directors, some resort general managers, go a little bit into the history of the Big Mountain certification pathway, where it came from, why we developed it, and where it's going. So if you take the time to sit through this, and then we're going to come back, and Jeff and I are going to chat a little bit about where we are now, and how you can get involved. So sit back and enjoy.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, this stuff is what I've done, but I think in the context of the PSIC Big Mountain program, it's what I'd like to do and what I would like to see. I mean, my story is pretty typical probably for a lot of you. I moved to the mountains because I wanted to keep skiing central in my life. I grew up in Edmonton, and I grew up ski racing, and keeping skiing central in my life was a huge part of the drive for me to come and moved to the mountains. And it didn't take long before the passion for the parts of the mountain that I was really drawn to come to the forefront. And that's the high alpine terrain. That's, at Whistler Blackcomb and a lot of the resorts that all of you guys live at. It's the kind of the crown jewel of the mountains, and Western Canada is certainly one of the jewels in the world ski industry for that. And that's the kind of skiing that I fell in love with. And I found myself leading programs where a skill set was required to do the job that I was doing, that there wasn't an education pathway for. So, like many people in many industries, I made it up, and I made it up with friends and coworkers and like-minded individuals because it was necessary. It was necessary for me to do my job. It was necessary for me to keep the people that I was working with safe. And I had some great mentors along the way. Pete Smart, the founder of Extremely Canadian that operates here in Whistler, was one of them. But I did find there was some lack in the education pathway, specifically for what I was after. And for a long time, I didn't really think of that other than that was missing. And so when Mark came to me with the idea that this pathway was going to be built, I was all over it. And I felt like I was kind of doing my honor to 19-year-old me who moved here, who would have been so excited to jump into this big mountain pathway and educate myself towards something that I really wanted to learn about and felt really passionate about. So that's enough about that. I kind of want to just jump in here to why we started doing this. As I said, Mark had the idea, but essentially there are at all the resorts that all of you operate and work at. This is already happening. The market, our guests are in this terrain, sometimes with us, sometimes without us. But there is a demand for it. We see it at Whistler. I know I've seen it. I spent a lot of time traveling around the mountains in Western Canada on the junior freeride tour, and as well with the Freeride World Tour, specifically to Kicking Horse. And I kind of have a decent idea of what's being offered and what people want. And a lot of our guests, they're in it for the fun, the excitement, the adventure. That's one of the pillars of the PSIC, is helping snow school guests and resort guests find that adventure and fall in love with it. And that's already happening at all of our resorts. So we feel like we have a responsibility to educate our staff to provide that product in a way that's going to be fun, it's going to be consistent, and it's going to be safe. It's going to be safe for our guests, and it's going to be safe for our staff because they're already in there. So we might as well do a better job. And to be totally honest and kind of blunt, we might as well not put our staff in the position that myself and some of my peers grew up in, where we're winging it and making it up as we go, because there is for sure a better way, and a little bit of education in this space, I think, goes a long way for providing that kind of just magic experience that our guests are looking for. So, you know, talking about who this is for, it's pretty interesting what we've seen in terms of the people that are attracted to this. You know, the evolution of the industry, the evolution of what snow school means across different resorts and in different parts of the world, and specifically different parts of Western Canada. It has a wide umbrella. And all of those, or a lot of those, especially the resorts that you guys are representing, can benefit from this. And the needs that we're seeing, first of all, everybody across the industry is looking for their employees to stay safe, to be able to be on snow longer, to have long careers that are healthy, deliver these excellent lessons that we all have the terrain and Ular willing the snowfall to deliver. So that's a huge part of it. The safety of our guests, if we're providing a product where people are regularly experiencing injuries, then they're not going to come back. They're not going to get hooked on it. And they're not going to, you know, that's not good for any one of us individually, but it's also not good for the overall. If guests are getting injured, then the perception of skiing becomes one of this high risk, danger filled pastime. And, you know, that can be a part of it. But this program and this education for all of our staff can help to mitigate that. And then the experience, if people feel safe in an environment that is inherently consequential, the enjoyment goes up. You know, it goes up hugely. They have a blast. They have a good time. They get to be in places that are really, really special. You know, I'm sure everyone on this call is living where they're living because for some reason they fell in love with that place, whether it was the terrain, whether it was the background, the weather, the snow, or some combination of all of those things. And that experience that we as kind of purveyors of the big mountain experience can pass on to guests is really the root of this whole thing. That's the core of it, the burning core. And when we pass on that experience, then people come back and it's better for everyone. And then, you know, the last point on that risk mitigation, that comes back to the guest and employee safety. This is a consequential environment. Things are out there that if they're not treated with the appropriate respect, they can bite. And for our guests and for our staff, if we can keep that down and provide an education pathway that gives a consistent understanding of how to move in that terrain, how to develop skills in that terrain, and how to keep people safe in that terrain, then we all have a better time, and our guests are having the, you know, the super magical skiing experience that we all know and love. So that's kind of it from the outside, from, let's say, the external. And then on the internal side, for our pros, and this is something I can speak to really personally, the ski instructors that are attracted to this, they're looking to advance their own skiing off-piste. They're looking for something that hasn't existed previously. And for a lot of them, they came into ski instructing, and then, like me, they found their way into this corner of the ski instructing world where they're spending most of their time leading, guiding, teaching in terrain that our traditional ski instructor education hasn't really covered in terms of education. So they're either looking to mentors in their own circle, or they're making things up as they go. And those competencies, they're hard won. You know, it's hard to come by a lot of this stuff without the experience. So, you know, what we're looking at here is a fast track to that competency, to be able to provide a safe product, to be able to provide an exciting product, but a product that actually helps people not just have a good time, but get better at skiing. So the demand came equally from the internal side, from the pros. And what we've seen, you know, in the early days is that demand is growing rapidly. We also have a kind of a corner of the ski industry, which is the freeride and freestyle clubs that exist at most of the resorts in Western Canada. And that is growing so fast. I mean, the IFSA, the governing body that handles competitive freeride skiing in North America, has already over 6,000 athletes, licensed athletes under its umbrella. And all of you, I'm sure, have seen the rapid growth of your freeride clubs on your teams. And with the Olympics looming out there for likely inclusion in 2030, that's going to grow. And having coaches that are competent, that aren't just recycled athletes from the clubs or from whoever you can get to do this, that have an actual qualification and a skill set that's been vetted by more than just whoever's doing the hiring, is going to start to come in handy as we head down an Olympic pathway. And those programs, they're growing fast. So that's kind of where we saw the demand on the inside of things. So this pathway, it's new, it's exciting. It's definitely a change from what we've seen in ski instructor education previously, and I would put that over the whole PSIC, but specifically on the big mountain side. There's a number of operations that are already using and requiring these skills. You know, I kind of alluded to it before, talking about freeride clubs, coaches and athletes going through this, just understanding better how to train athletes, how to develop skill, both in a season-long program and in a lesson format. And every resort has their specific programs, whether it's in the snow school directly or kind of outside licensing operators like we have in Whistler, extremely Canadian. All of these things, even the race clubs are getting on board, you know, with ski cross kind of taking off and people understanding, they're watching the World Cup and recognizing that some of the top athletes, they have a real nice touch for the snow that requires some time spent off piste to develop. And that supple ankle and all those things that go into the distinction between good skiers and great skiers in ski racing, in freeride, in instruction, it all comes down to a lot of the same sort of foundational principles. And so these groups are all finding themselves attracted to the product that we're putting out through the PSIC Big Mountain Pathway. Some of them are traditional audiences. Some of them are new to the instructor pathway, but all of them represent sort of opportunities for all of us to gather these people, help them get educated, and then provide a better product for all of us. So this, the title of this slide, how's it different? I want to talk a little bit about how it's different and also how it's the same. So within the structure of our program, the people that we have running the courses right now are absolute experts in the field of steep big mountain skiing instruction. As I said before, a lot of them have gone through a process of sort of self-development in this, and then with some mentors. Some have been working with programs for a long time that do this, that have had their own internal training. But essentially this, you know, the skill here is being a ski guide within the boundaries of a ski resort. So our traditional ACMG guiding world is out of bounds, and there's a whole bunch of hazard mitigation that goes into being a ski guide. Well, that same thing, that same approach is what we've taken here to build this big mountain program. There are so many decisions that go into every run, and just simply moving around the mountain is so fundamentally different than your traditional ski school lesson structure, that all of these skills are built into our programming at the level 2 as an introduction, and then on up the ladder. So all of the things that go into it, I mean, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of specific course content, but the moving around the mountain, understanding how mountains work, how weather affects mountains, letting the terrain and the mountain speak to you in your decision-making process, gathering information, and then turning that information that you have into valid decisions based on the factors that you've been paying attention to and adhering to. All of that comes under the umbrella of big mountain ski teaching. And then on top of all of that, the fundamentals of skiing, the physics and foundational principles of how moving your body affects the movement of a ski and how that affects the way the ski interacts with the snow. all of those things in combination, we have spent a ton of time with a group of people that have been doing this for 20 plus years, including myself, and put it into a digestible package at each level. So these structures are different because a lesson is different in the high alpine versus on a groomed run. But one of the things that we heard when we started this from a bunch of ski school directors is, if we're going to put a certification on this, then it needs to meet the technical standards that the CSIA is already delivering at individual levels. That's critical, because not every lesson for a certified instructor is going to be delivered in these environments, right? You still need to be multifaceted. You need to be able to also do it on piste. So that's also built into this, the foundational principles, the fundamentals of skiing. It's just an addition, all of this other stuff that encompasses moving in that big mountain environment that we've added on and developed and built. So we've got manuals, we've got all the protocols, and we've developed it and fully flushed it out to the place where it is now, which to me is really exciting, because it is, it's pretty new and it's been pretty fun to be involved with. So last year we got our level 2 and our level 3 off the ground here at Whistler Blackcomb. As Sedge said, or as Mark said before, that's because that's where we are. That's where I am. So it's going to push out from there. We had 50 course candidates through the level 2 and level 3. And this was interesting. Our demographic of course candidates was younger than what we've seen in the PSIC Alpine pathway. And this part, this next piece, was unexpected and awesome. Pretty close to dead on 50-50 male to female. We had a couple courses that actually ran 2/3 women, 1/3 men. So there's something about the culture that is building here that's attracting a different demographic to this certification pathway. And that's really exciting, because while we want to make sure that we kind of pay homage to those that came before us, forging a new path is scary. And seeing the people who are going to be the future leaders in the industry buying into this and diving headfirst into this is really exciting, where it was for me. And I think I can speak for all of those in the PSIC. So we saw integration in terms of building these certs into the pay scale from Whistler Blackcomb. And a big part of that included auditing of our on snow product. So we had the management who are also heavily involved in ski instructor education come out and do shadow days on our courses and kind of just tick the boxes that we are actually covering an appropriate curriculum that is necessary for ski professionals, not just for big mountain or steep skiing, but for ski professionals, full stop. So that was good, and that was heartening. And then integrating this year into Whistler Blackcomb all of the in-house steeps training, we are going to be guiding people towards the PSIC Big Mountain program, because we have the terrain, and so do so many of your resorts. When you have that big terrain, having people that are well trained and certified in moving people safely through that terrain and providing an excellent experience is huge. So that's kind of what we did season 1. As we roll into season 2, this is what it looks like. There's a level 2, a level 3, and a level 4 within the Big Mountain pathway. And the level 1 remains the same. That is the entry into the world of ski instructing. And with a lot of discussion, it was felt that it doesn't need to be different at level 1. You need to understand what ski instructing looks like, what it is like to have a job as a ski instructor, what the absolute basics are, how to teach a beginner lesson. It's enough to kind of set the hook, to use a fishing analogy. And then the pathway diverges. You've got the alpine or technical pathway, you've got the big mountain pathway. And this is where young, up and coming, and existing, say, veteran instructors can choose their route. The level 2 at the big mountain pathway starts to delve into the decision making, into getting into terrain, into making a lesson plan that can have a terrain evolution as well as a skill evolution, and combining both of those things together. Once we get to the level 3, it gets into more advanced terrain. It gets into more advanced movement of clients and guests, and then more advanced technique and understanding of the physics of skiing, of how a ski interacts with the snow, how your body interacts with the ski to make it do what you want to do, and tying all those things together. And then the level 4, no different from the Alpine or technical level 4, no different from the CSIA level 4, is the expert level of this. So within this pathway, we're of course going to see terrain start to dictate the ability to be or deliver one of these courses. So resorts are going to be, there's going to be resorts that can easily accommodate a level 2, maybe not so much a level 3, and then the level 4 gets it's full on, and we've designed it to be that on purpose. So we'll be rolling the level 4 out this year for kind of the first season of it, and we're gonna see what that looks like from the course candidate perspective. We saw some really strong candidates last year at the level 3, and basically anybody with their certification level 1, 2, or 3 in the PSIC Alpine or the CSIA will enter the Big Mountain pathway at level 2. If you have a level 4 in either stream, you can enter the Big Mountain pathway at the level 3. And it was quite good last year. We had the first level 3 course, and we had 2 or 3 pre-existing level 4s join us at the level 3 level. And there was some discussion from the level 4s of in this numbered program, stepping back a block to try something new. And is that appropriate for somebody who has this expert level, the full cert, right? That means a lot in the ski industry. And the feedback was unanimous that it's different enough, and there was enough learning and enough significant advancement in the skiing requirements that there was no hard feelings about level 3s or level 4s going into the level 3 stream. So that's the way it's built, that it's built right now, and so far so good in terms of the crossover. And I feel that that's going to gradually and naturally kind of evolve, and the crossover will organically go away as people start just traveling the path from the beginning to its natural conclusion at the level 4. But where we stand right now at the kind of genesis of this crossover and entry matrix is pretty important. So as we see here, this expansion is where we're at now. By design, the first year was Whistler Blackcomb centric because that's where we're at, and we weren't sure if people were going to buy into it. What we've seen is a rapid growth in demand for these courses, and the hope is that is just going to build exponentially out as people start to see this as a viable option for both their education, but also for all of you in terms of educating your staff. So the level 2 and level 3 across Western Canada will be terrain dependent. It's going to be hard for us to deliver a level 3 without appropriate big mountain steep terrain. The level 2, as long as there's some off-piste terrain that's steep enough, we feel that we can deliver that product successfully in certainly the bulk of Western Canadian resorts. And then as we move through the level 3 and the level 4, that the necessity for big steep terrain increases with the certification. So this, who we're attracting, this has been a really interesting byproduct of rolling this out. Of course, we rolled it out for ski professionals, for ski school staff, for ski instructors. But what we've seen is this other large chunk of the community engage with us in this process. So freeride clubs, freestyle, race clubs, the ski guide community, people who are approaching their ACMG exams, they have a ski instructing necessity in their ACMG program. At the CSIA or PSIC level 1, Well, the ACMG has accepted the PSIC Big Mountain pathway. And what we're seeing is a lot of these guides are feeling that this is way, way more relevant to the work that they're doing actually on snow with guests than the other programs were, where you teach how to do a beginner lesson and teach somebody how to click in and out of their bindings. This is giving them real world techniques that they can use and a much clearer and better understanding of how skiing works, so that they can improve their guest stay, whether it's ski touring or mechanized guiding. And that was, like I said, a really interesting byproduct of rolling this out and pushing it out through these communities, athletes, coaches, instructors, all of those people. And then we're piloting a program this year with the ski school here at Whistler Blackcomb, and I have a feeling this is going to grow really quickly. Ski Patrol is not immune to workplace injuries, no different than instructors are. And a lot of the stuff that we cover, while it focuses on the teaching of the skills, it also focuses on the doing of the skills. And if patrollers can move around the mountain more efficiently with a stronger set of skills, get in and out of terrain, I would describe a lot of the patrol skiing as utility skiing. Get in, get out, do the thing you have to do. But there often isn't really any kind of understanding of the physics of it, how it's supposed to work. Who cares how it looks? You know, if you're moving a toboggan down a steep piece of terrain, or just accessing that terrain, doing avalanche routes or any of that stuff, it doesn't matter how it looks. It matters how it works. And that piece is something that we've seen the Ski Patrol really buy into our programming. And I have a feeling that that's going to grow really quickly, because again, workplace injuries exist there just as much as they do in snow schools. And in mitigation of those things, if we can help with that with the programming that we have, then fantastic. That's all the better, to get some patrollers into our courses, help them understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why different ways or different approaches can have different results, and just keep everybody safer. And then everybody's having a better time out on snow. And hopefully we're not needing those patrollers for our snow school staff or our guests nearly as much as before.
All right, so Derek, that was us in late November of 2024, so just at the start of this season. And we've had quite a bit of growth since then. We've got programs running in a lot of different ski areas now outside of Whistler. So maybe my first question is, what do we know now that we didn't know then? What have we learned along the way so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fluid environment, and we are still kind of in the early stages of this. One of the things that's been, I think, really interesting to me is the deeper we get into this, the more we offer, the more we realize that people are hungry for this. You know, on one side of it, the ski schools, the management, having people that are operating and teaching in big terrain, that understand risk management, that understand decision making in terrain, that understand skill development in terrain, is so important for these resorts that have this terrain as part of their tenure and are really looking to kind of make the most of it in their snow school products. And then it goes so much broader than that. We've got freeride coaches that are getting involved and getting interested, mountain guides that are getting involved and getting interested. It's really interesting, kind of, to me, the diversity of interest and demand, and then I guess this underlying need for it across a lot of the snow sports spaces that, you know, I guess we didn't know before because it just wasn't there. But it's pretty interesting and also exciting to see that diverse group of people kind of coming to us with this like hunger for exactly what we're kind of building and providing and developing right now.
That's awesome. Maybe just to dig a little deeper, you mentioned demand. Like, what is it that the ski resorts and some of the clubs and so on, like, what are they really looking for in this program, as you've spoken to them? Like, is it a specific part of the program they're most interested in?
I think one of the things that is standing out to me is the decision making, the process of actually moving in big terrain and understanding not only the sort of, you know, consequence of the decisions that you have, but all of the factors that go into making those decisions. You know, it is a broad spectrum. As I said, it's a really fluid environment. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of information to take in. So having, you know, a staff that understands the environment is really important to be able to then deliver a product that's not only fun and adventurous and exciting, but also safe, both for the staff members and for the guests. That's probably the thing to me that's the highlight point of all of this, and what the, let's say, the people in the management positions are really interested in terms of what we're delivering and what they are enjoying about what we're delivering, but also what they want us to do.
You know, and I've heard from people who are comfortable in that terrain, and they've often been skiing in it, you know, quite regularly, and that is sort of their comfort zone. I've also heard, and maybe I'm actually not a bad example of this end of the spectrum as well, is just people that have been skiing for a very long time, but are more used to, you know, the more controlled aspects of the ski resort. You know, who is the program for? Is it for both of those ends of the spectrum, if I can say? Is it more for one than the other?
Yeah, 100% both. To really put a fine point on it. You know, there's plenty of people who are skiing in that terrain already, and are looking to sharpen their skills, you know, on the teaching side. But one of the things that's been, I guess, maybe most exciting for me is there are lots of ski instructors that are coming through and coming into the big mountain level 2 that don't have a lot of experience in that. And there is a level of nervousness coming in, right? Because there's some preconceived notions of what it's going to be. Oh, am I going to have to jump off cliffs? Am I going to have to ski things that I'm terrified of? And I think what we're finding, at least from the feedback, is that the entry point, particularly at the big mountain level 2, is comfortable. You know, it is an introduction to teaching in the terrain, to understanding the terrain, to recognizing all of the factors that go into making your decisions on where to go and why. And that part of it, I think, has been quite heartening, I guess, to see people that are coming in with a lot of nerves. You know, people that are experienced ski instructors, as you said, but maybe in different parts of the resorts, that are entering into these courses, being like, I don't know if this is my place. You know, I don't know if this is the thing. But there is, at least for all of those people, a bit of a common thread running through, which is a little bit of a sense of adventure, you know, an interest to try something that is a bit outside their wheelhouse. And so then that's on us to provide them a space where, by putting themselves there, we then help them to develop some comfort in those places. And it can be, and is, a relatively gentle curve into terrain, with a lot of information on how to move, how to look, how to scope, how to develop skills. You know, all of the same things that exist in terms of actual, like, get your hands dirty ski instruction of, you know, the physics of skiing and how skis interact with snow and how your body makes those things happen. Those are still happening in the big mountain environment. There's just the additional piece of, like, where can you develop that? You know, what are the hallmarks of the terrain and the snow that you're looking for, and all those kinds of things that I think people are finding really interesting because it is kind of new. And that, like I said, that adventurous curiosity is what's driving it, and that's the thread that runs through the courses. Nerves, you know, a little bit of trepidation, that's totally to be expected when you're entering into something that you don't have familiarity with. So then it's up to us to take that and help people recognize that it doesn't need to be scary or terrifying. It can just be fun, and meet people where they are in their path of development and comfort, and help kind of build like a comfort and happiness in new terrain. And I think, for me at least, that part it's been really rewarding, because people who didn't think they would be, I mean, they thought it enough to sign up and register for a course, but there was, like I said, there's nerves and some apprehension, and finding those people at the end of the time together, just frothing on it, you know, so excited about what's to come, and also looking kind of down this hallway of recognition of a world they didn't even know was there before. and starting to see the educational possibilities and the adventure possibilities of all that you can do going forward. So yeah, for me, that's really exciting, and it's been super rewarding to see that. But for sure, both sides of the spectrum are equally getting engaged, which I think is cool, because this doesn't need to be for one kind of person or one kind of instructor, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the feedback that I've had from people who I've run into who have taken the program, Whistler, Kicking Horse, and so on, um, that kind of matches the feedback. Like most of the time, it is feedback that's more associated to whatever the right word is, the sort of the empowerment that they felt going through that program. Like, oh my God, it had me fully in my challenge zone. It was a big deal for me and I loved it. And I felt good. I felt on the edge sometimes, but I was well taken care of, and I learned a lot
Yeah.
both about myself and my skiing. So I think that's quite a cool thing. So different, but quick question. Difference between level 2 and level 3 big mountain, but are there some main differences in the challenge side of that and the skill sets?
Yeah, I think with the level 2 is an introduction. It really is an introduction. I mean, it builds straight out of the PSIC level 1, that everyone does the same regardless of which pathway you're on. And it is truly designed as an introduction to teaching in the big mountain environment. And part of that for many people is an introduction to the big mountain environment at all, which is cool, and that's built into the curriculum. The level 3 is definitely more in depth, in terms of both the intensity of the skiing, the amount of skiing. Certainly, the teaching side of it is a lot more robust. We are aiming that the technical knowledge that you come out of the Big Mountain program is equal to the technical knowledge that you come out of the Alpine pathway, right? So that part is baked into it completely, but the scope of the decision making and the scale of information gathering and the guiding side, the inbounds, say front country guiding, is a lot more robust at the level 3 level, or level 3, level. So that part of it definitely goes a lot more in depth into recognizing terrain, understanding the hazards that you're faced with, also the snow conditions and the weather that causes those snow conditions, because being able to read the terrain that you're in is absolutely critical to then making decisions on where you're going to move around the mountain with your guests, and even on your own. I mean, there's a lot of this that applies just as much to the time when you're free skiing as it does to when you're teaching, because the decisions you're making have the same consequences down the track, right? Everything you decide, every bit of information you take in and use to make a decision has a scale that it sits on, and we want to balance that scale on the side of everybody being safe and returning to the base of the mountain intact and happy, and feeling energized and jazzed on the day, every day.
Yeah.
So I think those are kind of the main hallmarks of the differences between those two. And so for people that are, if their certification kind of allows for it, if they have a lot of experience in big mountain terrain, not just skiing, but also teaching, then the level 3 is a potential entry point. And for those that are a bit newer to it or unsure, or just starting their certification pathway, then the big mountain level 2 is that's the sweet spot.
That's the way to go. That's awesome. Very quick question on equipment. What should people prepare for if they're thinking of kind of taking on the pathway and getting involved?
Yeah, so I mean, the two prime factors, I think, are a slightly wider ski and a ski with a little bit less side cut. Those are kind of the two things that are really easier to manage in bigger terrain. The wider ski, whether the snow is choppy or whether it's deep, having a little bit of flotation, the ability to just stay on top and not have your ski dive right to the bottom, makes everything a little bit easier. Which, efficiency is the name of the game in big mountain skiing. And then the side cut really comes down to safety. As the terrain tips up, your side cut acts much more rapidly on a steep pitch than it does on a slower pitch. So when we're dealing with entries, moving through cornices or rocks or all of the millions of different terrain obstacles that Mother Nature and the mountains throw at us. A lot of side cut, a 12-meter ski, 11-meter slalom ski, it's going to hook up and go right back uphill really quickly, and that can be a lot more difficult to manage the forces that build up rapidly. So a slightly straighter ski is easier to keep out of the fall line or allow to actually move sideways with a bit of edge control than a ski with a lot of side cut does. And so those are kind of the two main things. Certainly, like, we don't want to put people in a box of like, you only can ski in this terrain with that kind of equipment, this terrain with that kind of equipment, but safety and kind of ease of use are the main factors in that. So yeah, something a little bit wider and a little bit straighter is definitely a lot easier and for sure safer.
Maybe one last question is just a little bit of where you feel the most connected to this program, I guess, or where you're seeing people be the most connected. And, is it the sort of the technical development of their own skiing? Is it a different aspect that you find people are really taking away from this? Is it all of the above? Maybe just a couple of last comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it feels good to be good at something. I think that statement applies to a pretty broad spectrum of activities. So improving your own skiing is always rewarding and fun. I think there's also a big part of this that's really catching people with the Big Mountain certification program is time in this spectacular environment. For a lot of people, the parts of the mountain that we're traveling in aren't necessarily familiar to them. And by gaining that familiarity, there is the feeling of adventure, of really interesting. And at the end of the day, I mean, skiing is supposed to be fun, right? That's the baseline that we put into all of this. Whether you've moved to the mountains to pursue a career in ski instructing or you're on vacation doing it, that part has to be there, or the rest of the house of cards falls apart really quickly. So giving that kind of adventurous feeling and helping open people's eyes to the fact that there's way more than they may have initially known is just really exciting. It's got that fun factor, that adventurous factor that people are really vibing with and kind of grabbing onto, and that's been a huge part of the feedback after. So I think, for us that are delivering these courses, that's one of the themes that are running through it, where people are like, wow, I just have such a bigger picture of all the things that I can do in ski instructing now, which I think is awesome, right? Because if we want, as a big picture industry, we want people to stay in this forever, like we've done, right? Like,
Yeah,
move to the mountains when you're a kid or you grow up in the mountains, and you want to stick with it, if that's your chosen, career pathway. So having more options of ways that you can do that and things that are actually really enjoyable for you as a pro, as an instructor, when you can get up, the alarm goes off in the morning and you get up going, oh yeah, like, I'm going to work and this is going to be awesome, rather than, oh, off we go, briefcase and lunchbox in hand. Like, it really it's got to have that, or people aren't going to stay engaged in it. And I think that's something that we're seeing more people's eyes open really wide on, all the ways that this can be for them and all the things that it can be for them. And that side of it from our users, which are the ski pros who are delivering these great lessons out there to real, members of the public, when they feel engaged and fired up on what they're delivering on a daily basis, I think that's a job done for us. So if we're giving them the tools to then be able to make their job more interesting, more engaging, more fun, more fulfilling, then I think that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe that's a good note to end on. Love that. Thanks for answering a few questions for everyone. Maybe for those of you listening, you've probably got more questions. You can certainly find out more information at psic.pro if you just go to our website. click on programs and you'll find the Big Mountain Pathway along with all of our other pathways and product information there. And if you have some specific questions, don't be afraid to reach out. info@psic.pro is our email address. We hope this was valuable for you. Thanks, Derek. I'm inspired every time I chat with you about this, so I'm excited about it. And we will talk to you again soon.